Heirs to Heresy, the fall of the Knights Templar, part two. We are going to pick up right where we left off, but I wanted to recap a bit of the events of our previous session and remind us all of who we're playing and the circumstances that surround them. So, you three are a group of young Knights Templar who, on the morning of Friday, the 13th of October, in the year 1307, awoke in the Paris stronghold to find that the French forces, under order from King Philip IV, were laying siege to the structure and killing and arresting your brothers and sisters of the order. And you are all now branded heretics, criminals, enemies of the church. So we have Jazzy. You here are playing the French knight Elias Is it Beaumont? Is that how it's pronounced, or Beaumains? I don't speak French, so I don't know the pronunciation.
Bullman, is it?
Beaumain.
So you
Okay,
don't say the S, that just means it's plural, but you
gotcha.
don't
Beaumain.
say it.
Gotcha. Cool. Kevin with Estevão Valente, the Portuguese bookish slash roguish gentleman. I'm excited to see more of those natures come out. And Ben with his big Scandinavian warrior, Torben Bjornsen, who is everyone's friend. So, as a bit of a recap of what transpired last time, upon awaking to the sounds of battle in the Templar stronghold of Paris, you geared up and went out into the hallways looking for the source of whatever the commotion was. There was a fire growing in the Templar quarters, and you all moved to find the courtyard and the stables to effectively reach higher ground, maybe find a better understanding of the situation. En route, you were waylaid by a group of French guards, city guards, like rank and file soldiers, who en masse attacked you, seemingly without reason at the moment. But you defended yourself well and bested them. And upon reaching the courtyard, you stumbled into the path of none other than the Grand Master of the Order, Jacques de Molay, who commanded you three to follow him to reach the reliquary. And apparently it was important more than anything else that was happening right now. As you followed de Molay through through the stronghold, you passed by scenes of your fellow brothers and sisters being assaulted by the French forces. Those who were not immediately laying down arms and surrendering were being put to the sword by knights and soldiers alike. Upon reaching the chapel, the most holy sanctuary of the stronghold, de Molay had you three guard the door from some assaulting French knights while he attempted to open a door to the reliquary. You warded these knights off when a fire that had begun to spread along the rooftops of the stronghold caused the chapel ceiling to collapse, pinning de Molay's leg beneath one of the beams. You were able to lift the beam off of his leg, though it had severely crippled him. And just as more knights and soldiers were beginning to flock into the chapel, you guys got the door open and you all went inside a unassuming stone closet, really. And Torben was ordered to hold the door as de Molay went over to a piece of stonework, and upon pushing it, revealed a hidden passageway that descended down beneath the stronghold. De Molay guided you into a sort of like vault, a treasure room full of papers and gold and other fineries, and thrust a sturdy wooden chest wrapped and locked in thick iron chains directly into the hands of Elias, and declared the situation simply for what it is. King Philip IV has betrayed the Templar Order, and you have been tasked to take this chest to the city of Lisbon in Portugal, where there are friends of the Templar Order who can help you, and that the entire fate of the Templars now rests on your shoulders. There was a tunnel leading out of the treasure room that he told you would guide you out of here, and he would hold the tunnel on your behalf. He went back upstairs to relieve Torben of his duty, and as Torben told de Molay to die well, the Grand Master said, "Not today," and despite being a crippled old man, threw open the door to enter combat with French knights and buy you time to escape. And we ended the session with the three of you racing down the tunnel and being deposited along the banks of the Seine, the river that runs through Paris. Morning is dawning over the horizon. The very first glimmers of orange are visible, and the flames of your burning stronghold can be seen in the distance. The cries of the city watch can be heard as the search for the fleeing Knights Templar is beginning all over Paris. And the three of you are fully armed and armored with your tabards, insignias, the Red Cross of the Knights Templar. You have blood on you, and Elias is holding a box wrapped in thick chains. So we dive right back into it as our Templars are now seeking escape from the forces that hound them. This will be the first session, by the way, where I will be making use of the pursuit points rules, which I'll briefly touch on that just so we are all on the same page about it now. But effectively, off to the side on our character keeper, you'll notice that there is an ongoing counter of pursuit point because this campaign starts with you guys on the run. And so this is the mechanical framework that models that. You start with the number equal to the character, so in this case 3, and there are things that can cause pursuit points to go up. I'll kind of like call them out as I see them, and I get to spend them if I so desire to impose penalties or have dramatic things come up just that'll harry you. This is not a like a big like campaign ending thing, but if you ever reach 6 pursuit points at any point, whenever it's just like it's 2 times the number of players, that means that the enemies will find you very soon, so you'll have a particularly like dramatic confrontation. It just means that like you'll be caught, and it'll be a bit of a standoff, but hopefully you'll be able to escape. But we'll talk more about like pursuit points as they come up and things that are happening. And with that, I think we just need to begin right in the middle of it to set the scene of where you are again. The Templar stronghold is north of Paris, kind of like outside the wall of Philip Augustus, and you are now inside basically the heart of the city. You had emerged from this tunnel, been like along the like walkway that's near the banks of the Seine, and you can see just directly in front of you are it's like the grand bridge that goes to City Island, where the Cathedral of Notre Dame and the King's Palace is. There are church bells beginning to ring all over the city. You are in the heart, the dead center of Paris. What happens next? Where do we find our Templars as you emerge out into the open?
I think the first thing Torben will do once he takes a moment to catch his breath, he's going to rip the tabard off his chest and try and disguise that the Templar markings.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I imagine like as you pull it off, that it catches just in like it's dark because the morning is like it's still creeping up over the horizon, but it still seems so boldly white and the red cross so visible. But as you just discard it, do you just throw it to the ground, or?
Yeah, yeah, just drop it to the side of the path that they're on.
What are Elias and Estevao doing as they see Torben do this?
I think Estevao will figure out what exactly is going on and give a couple quick nods, and similarly tear off and discard his own. Actually, won't discard it. He'll bundle it up into a pack. We might need it later. Mm-hmm. I don't know why, but
I think Elias very pointedly doesn't do that and picks up the one Torben discarded. And there's like this look of like offense almost that you did this. Like he doesn't say anything, but there is this like, how dare you, as he picks it up and like folds it away. I think very almost like demonstrative. I'll put it like, like near my chest. I'll put it like inside my tunic. Um, and I'm still like sort of doing this as I'm holding. How big is this chest that I'm holding, by the way? Is it
Um,
like small enough that I can like run with it, or is it like a
yeah,
giant?
I'd say it's about like this big. It's
Okay.
it's definitely like the size of like a shoebox maybe. It's sturdy,
Hmm.
but you get the idea that like the heft is coming not from what is inside the box. The heft is just from the heavy iron chains and the sturdiness of the box itself. So it's pretty. It's not like it's not it's pretty easy to carry.
Hmm. Yeah, I think what I will do is I will like take off a belt or a sash or whatever and sort of do it through the handles and like basically make like a bag. So I have my
Mm-hmm.
hands in case I need to fight and I'm not holding something or I need to climb or whatever.
You
Um,
are definitely able to do so. I will note, by the way, as since you guys are on this line of thinking, that you're all kitted out to the fucking gills, and you do possess shields, and all of your shields bear the cross insignia of the Templars, notably on them. Whether or not it's um visibly like the white and red, at the very least it is a wooden shield with the iron crucifix cross of the Templars on it.
Ooh, we're near the banks of the river, yeah?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right along it. This is one of the most like populated thoroughfares in Paris during the most active times of day. So this early in the morning, it's you can just like look out and it's dark and it's pretty empty, so it gives you some shadow to work with before the light comes over the horizon. But like there are like you're basically if you were to visualize Paris for a moment, there is this, not like canal, this walkway along the Seine, and on like if you were to like segment that into thirds, on the left and right thirds, those are like the bustling ports and like docks areas, and this is sort of the connective tissue between all traffic that comes from the Grand Bridge to the City Island, the southern parts of the city, markets all over the place. Like this is going to be a busy area soon, but it is for now quiet and alone as you're on the banks.
Torben's gonna crouch down and just grab a fistful of river muck and start smearing it over his shield. Try and, at the very least, make someone pause for a second before just automatically assuming these are Templars. And he'll look back at Elia, and that's not helping you today. Yesterday was a cross. This morning it's a target. Take it off.
no, I will not give up on this order so easily,
You're not helping the order if you get us all killed.
and I won't.
Just going
I'm
back to the mud.
Yeah, you stoop down and you're able to get enough of like the mud to like to begin to smear it over your shield. Um, I think I'm going to just go ahead and be a dramatic little guy. I'm going to spend a pursuit point right away, just given the fact that there is some, I think this little, not necessarily discourse, but stalled conversation as you have this confrontation. Esteval, as Torben and Elias have their little spat here, you can turn and see that there is a patrol of city guards that are turning onto the banks of the Seine here. There, torches aloft, moving in this direction. What do you do?
Uh, hurry towards the other two. Argue later, they're coming. They're right around the corner.
Uh, Torben's gonna stand up, hope that that's enough on the shield, and which way do we go then?
Well, we're on the bank of a river, so I'm assuming if they're coming one way, we have to go the other.
Unless we try and lose them in the alleys.
Yeah, I was about to say, so like the this part of, because like it dips like up below the bridge level and some like city levels, so you can go in the opposite direction, and you'll be able to like raise up to like street side, and maybe there are various alleyways and other thoroughfares, as the first light is now beginning to peek over the buildings, casting a golden bath across the rooftops.
I don't know the city. And we'll look pointedly at Elia.
I do, and I know a place where we can lay low for a while. Follow me. And I will immediately like slip into one of the alleyways. And I am trying to, I assume that I do know the city very well because I was
Yeah,
born
you're
here and
from
raised
here.
here.
Yeah.
And I will try to bring them. I assume that is like not that close, but close enough to like my old family home, hoping that we can wait there for a little bit because nobody comes there anymore.
Yeah, I'm into this. Let's talk about your family home just for a quick moment out of the fiction. Um, so we're playing with historical accuracy, and historical accuracy is not a big concern. So I'm not going to be a stickler about it. I did do some light research though on stuff like this. It seems that like a lot of homes were, unless you were like there were some like that were inside the wall. There are other ones that were like in the hectares of land outside the wall. Still like in the tangle of the city, just the city wall of Philip Augustus. There's still like a bunch of urbanization outside of it, but there's kind of a mix. This What is the vibe of your family's household when you envision it? What do you see? Like just facade or otherwise?
Yeah, I think it's just like it's very like they were very wealthy before this, which is a reason why they like part of why they got targeted. So I think there's like it would have been very beautiful, but basically everything of like gold leaf decoration, whatever, like that will be stripped when we get there. Like furniture, anything cash would have like jewels, gold, all of that is gone. But I do imagine that it's like very much like this big fancy house with like, the garden and all of that in the style. It's probably, I'm guessing, like a little bit outside of the walls rather than like
Mhm.
in it. But I'm not sure. I'm not like historically, I don't know where nobility would be.
Yeah, because well,
Because,
just as a historical note, at this time period, they had not yet like created like the nobility district, which is a thing that comes, I think, in like the 1370s. So it's
yeah,
like
because
there are just
like my
houses scattered all over the place, mostly on the northern side of the river.
Yeah, because like one part of me would say like obviously you want to be inside the wall so that when there's a siege you can stay in your fancy little house protected.
Mhm.
Um, but it could also be just like really near and maybe they had other property that's like slightly smaller inside the city. But we're
Here's actually a
going to
really good question
like
for you: is how old do you see your family having been around for? Because knowing that the wall was, I think, constructed like in like the 1100s or 1200 range, like if
mhm.
they are older than the wall, then they would not have built their house with a wall in mind. So it can really kind of just be like on either side of the city that you think makes the most sense. But if they're like a relatively like air quotes newer family, where the
Mhm.
construction of their house came afterwards, I'm fine with you just kind of like having your say of where the family home is. Because I don't mind either
Yeah.
way.
So I really like playing with this idea that they were like sort of the Belmonts. So
Mm-hmm.
that they were like really, really
Sure.
old family that's been like hunting supernatural shit for like forever. They were probably, which is also why it was kind of easy to accuse them of witchcraft. And people were like,
Sure.
oh, well, they are very old and those old nobility. So there was like sort of that to it where even though it's like 1300s, like we feel old and they feel modern.
Sure. I love it. Yeah, then I think it being kind of like situated outside the wall makes the most sense because where it was like if you have because I want to lean into that Belmont vibe you're selling here where it's like they're kind of like prominent but slightly more removed from the center of things. So
Exactly.
they're kind of like we're
Yeah.
doing our own thing. It's still in the city. Just I love this. Great.
Hmm.
So you got a bit of a trek here, but it sounds like Elias is leading the way with the intent of going towards his vacated family home. Of course, this poses some concerns that perhaps all of you can reflect on the journey, which is simply that requires going through or getting past the city wall, getting whether that's through one of its many gates or somehow finding another way over or under it. Though at this time there's not like a sewer in Paris proper, so I guess we'll have to figure that when we get to it. But you lead the way. I think we cut to the church bells are ringing across the city, heralding the first hour of daylight, a time period at this time known as Prime. And already, in the early morning, the streets are beginning to get busy. The narrow streets run between 3 and 4 story high houses, and the tangle of Paris is extremely noisy and crowded with people and animals, especially the early risers, barking dogs and various sorts who are moving their way to work. In this part of the city, there's a lot of like mercantile aspects of this, so it's very bustling, it's very busy. Street merchants all over are probably like setting up here and there. The shouting has already started. As they're advertising their goods, taking things from like door to door, fish, fruits, vegetables, cheese, that kind of stuff. And there is a lot of people around you. Now, as kind of like a first thing to consider, yes, you've taken off your tabards. Yes, Torben has smeared a shield in mud, but Elias has not. And I assume Estevao's shield is also similarly is not altered, since we didn't get to that. Unless you have a different thought on that, Kevin.
No, I think you're right.
So despite those things, you're still heavily armed and armored, and not wearing the heraldry of the French forces, so you can't be mistaken for soldiers or city guards. How are you moving through the city, especially as things get progressively more crowded, and that means more eyes on you? Or are you like truly just sticking to as many like side alleyways and like trying to maneuver through the flow of the city in such a way that gets like the least amount of attention on you possible? I'm open to the approach, to whatever this looks like.
I think Elias would at least like his vote would be for like alleyways as much as we can. And I think there's a sense in his mind at least where he hasn't fully grasped the extent of this.
Mm-hmm.
So he knows like, okay, so the French knights are fighting us, but that doesn't know like that like every peasant in the city knows this, right?
Okay,
Like
yeah.
this wasn't they don't spread the news first and then attack, like they're attacking and then it's gonna side. So even if we walk through a marketplace, they're not necessarily gonna like just jump us. Like if
Sure.
we don't make a big deal of it, if we just move quickly as if we have a purpose, I think like I'm not saying that's right, but Elias is very much like that's probably gonna be fine. Just be quick about it.
Do Torben or Esteval have additional thoughts on this, or is that sound good to you too?
Sounds good. Esteval, being a former child criminal, probably has a bit of sense of alleyway traversal.
Mm-hmm.
But I think if Elia is the one who knows where we're going, Esteval might just chime in every now and then with like, we should take this alleyway, or there are guards coming this way. There are never guards in the alleyways, or once he knows what point A to point B is, he'll help, I think, Elia get to where he's trying to lead us.
I'm into it, but the first thing I will call for, I'm gonna have Jazzy do this, is on account of the fact that you are being seen by peasants and merchants. I need you to roll a D10, if you'd be so kind. On a 1, 2, or 3, your pursuit points will go up by 1.
Okay. Look at my pretty dice that I borrowed.
The new unicorn dice you mentioned.
You really can't see, but they're very pretty.
That is very cute, actually.
Well, it's a 1.
All right, pursuit points go back up by 1. I think
Elias should not be the leader.
No, I like this though. And let's, this is not formally in the game, but I'm still gonna, bring it into it. Let's paint the scene, everyone. I would love to hear from y'all as you're moving through the tangled streets of Paris, in what ways do you know the eyes of the citizens are upon you, even if they don't know what's happened with the Templars yet? In what little ways do you feel the eyes upon you?
Normally, poor people would beg us for coin as we go past, because armor, weapons, all very expensive. And even if the Templar Order is providing them with us, or providing us with them, the assumption is that we have coin. And as we go down one of the streets, as and it once is an oddity, but after the second, the third, the fourth street beggar goes scattering into the shadows as we go passing by. Esteval kind of begins to think there's something bigger going on here.
I feel like Torben is probably pretty used to being stared at a little bit as a big guy. He usually towers over the people he's with. And it's pretty obvious that people are avoiding his gaze this time and trying not to look their way.
I think we have to like traverse like a small market or like just some people having stuff or something. And as we pass them, we sort of hear little whispers, and then one of them has like a conversation with another one, kind of nods and goes into a different direction, splits off from that group. Maybe nothing.
I'm into it. I think as you're moving through the streets, for a moment, a where did this go? There's you're turning down an alleyway, and I think Esteval will say that you're probably the one who would clock this, that there are various some mendicants that are out begging for alms among the early traffic, and one of them, as the three of you are passing by, his eyes track you, hands out, and in French is just saying, it's like, please sir, spare a coin, please sir. What do you do?
I don't think Esteval has any coins
You
on
have no
him.
coins on you. No, you can just see the desperate eyes that look at you.
Uh, I don't think Esteval can do anything, so he mutters an apology and just walks on.
The mendicant's eyes like follow you with a bit of a mix of sadness, but also frustration. Are you going to say something, Ben?
Is this guy about the size of Elias or Esteval?
I'd say probably the size of Esteval, yeah.
Does he have a cloak or some sort of
Yeah, he's like,
something on?
I think I totally imagine he's like wrapped in a beggar's shawl. Like he has like the blanket and like the very kind of like humble frayed clothing, rope tied off around the waist.
Torben is going to try and make a trade, his crossbow for the cloak.
What do you say to him?
This will sell for some coin. Take it, and I'll take your cloak.
Oh, this is good. I like this a lot. I actually just think that, honestly, I'm not gonna call for like a role in this situation. I truly think that this is just like an effective and straightforward course of action. The mendicant certainly looks like he's not entirely sure what to do with a crossbow that's in his hand, but he can see, the well crafted and well oiled stock and its mechanical components. He kind of like holds it aloft, like he's probably never even been close to one of these in his life. Looks at it, and without saying much, he is just shrugging off his cloak and passing it off to you.
Great. Yeah, I will keep the bolts, but my crossbow's gone.
Mm-hmm. And when you begin to go on the move again, he just mutters some thanks in your direction.
Corbin's already moving on and pushing the cloak against Esteval's chest.
Esteval will put on said cloak, I suppose.
It fits over you. Obviously, it was positioned over bare shoulders and naked frame, and so it's a little. It sits a little queerly on top of all of your armor and gear, but it's additional. It helps hide it a little bit, gives you an extra a little bit of an extra disguise. I think what I want to do here is just to kind of, in brief, approach, moving through the streets of Paris at this hour. I think this will call for like a basic test. I think that there is enough of risk present in the environment of Paris, and it seems like pretty much like dangerous territory. And I would say that failure is both interesting and fuel for the narrative should you get waylaid or caught. So I'm going to call for a test here, and because Elias is the one leading the group, it does go into Jazzy's shoulders. Of course, we can approach the aid rules as they come up, possibly. But you need to let me know how you want to approach the test, which attribute you think is most suited for the obstacle at hand, and which skill best complements the situation. Either any pairing works. And I think just to structure this a little bit more, this is solely about navigating through Paris and effectively not being like reaching this destination without being caught by patrols or waylaid by them, that kind of thing. And
Mhm.
how would you approach that obstacle?
Um, I mean, quickness and stealth seems the obvious ones, but I'm gonna see if I can make a case for um faith here, because I think having gotten this thing in my hands, and Elia is very much still in the like, yes, this is God's will. All of this is God's will. It is His will that this is happening, that this thing must reach to Lisbon, and so God will show me the way. He will not let us fail here. That is not the path. That's not the way. So I think that there is, of course, like the practical element of us sort of trying to find the right ways, trying to hide. But Elias himself is more so doing this in sort of, yeah, like trusting that it's going to go right, trusting in God's path and sort of letting it guide him, because presumably God and spiritual powers are real in the setting. So there is something I can rely on here, and I
I,
can let
I
it
think you've
guide
argued. Yeah,
me.
I think you've already argued your case for using faith as the attribute. I like that. Exactly for what you just said, right? With like it's less of you using your own smarts or quickness. It's like, all right, like you got the stick in front of you. Which way do I feel it being tugged? Like,
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
fun.
And it's sort of like walking past people with like the right amount of like, I have a purpose, don't even look at me, like sort of not actively trying to hide, but sort of just being like, there's nothing to see here.
Mm.
Um, and for the skill, I would, um, can I argue for travel because it's more so about me already knowing the way and the quickest way than it is about stealth.
Mm. I was gonna say like, okay, I'm into that argument. I was gonna say either travel or like awareness would be the one that my brain would go to for what you
Awareness, yeah.
described with like faith. I could see either one coming into play here. I will note, at least somewhat mechanically, both of your Templar comrades have a 2 or higher in awareness, which means they can both aid you in the task.
Yeah.
If you but if you were leaning more, if you can pick whichever one you want because I think both are
No,
good
I
choices.
think awareness makes sense. Like I'm letting
Mhm.
God guide me, but I
Yeah.
am like I'm also not stupid. Like obviously
Yeah.
if there's nights I'm not gonna go that way. I will find a different way. Or if it's like
Yeah.
especially busy somewhere, I'm not gonna go there. But yeah.
100% because awareness covers things like noticing and avoiding ambushes, and that absolutely tracks with here in the city.
Exactly.
I love that. Let's look over at Esteval and Torben for a moment, because if either one of you, or actually, well, both of you, you can aid and support Elias's test. You both have a minimum of +2 in awareness, and I would absolutely give you my permission to be aiding. I think fictionally makes the most sense, but I just kind of want to have a little bit of a justification on y'all's part, like what Torben and Estevao actively aiding Elias in this task looks like what the setup for it is. How would you argue that, okay, we are helping Elias navigate it while he's leading the way and avoiding the patrols?
I think we see as they're like attempting to cross the street, um Estevao like grabs Elias by the shoulder and goes, "Wait a second," pulls Elliot back and like takes a peek out, looks both ways, or like, puts his hood up and looks both ways, and then uh darts across the street, and then gives like the spy movie, like the wave across.
Torben, like his head's on a swivel, and he has, I think, probably a good head again in height over the two of them. So he can maybe he just has a slightly higher perspective
I like
that
it.
might be useful here.
That's useful. I'm into it. So Torben and Estevao, make sure you provide them with one of the 3 aid benefits. I put the list there in the chat again. You can each pick one, but you can't double up on the same. You can't do the same one twice. So think about that for a moment, as I just go ahead and say that I think the way I want to handle this is this will be a contested test, in which case I'm just going to roll on behalf of the people looking for you, and or rather searching the city. And what that looks like most of the time is because enemies don't have like stats like you guys do. I roll 2d10 and I add the number of Templars in the scene to the roll. And so therefore in this case it'll be 2d10 plus 3. That'll be what I'm rolling for the French forces who are patrolling and hunting down Templars. Ben, what bonus do you want to impart upon Elias's roll?
I will go with the advantage.
All right, so you'll have advantage on this, Elias and Kevin.
I'll grant +2.
All right, you get to add a +2 that you can add on top of your roll. Very good. So you're 3d10 plus faith and awareness plus an additional 2 against my 2d10 plus 3. I have a feeling you're gonna get it. And remember what you roll on each of the dice. You're muted, Jazzy.
A 7, a 5, and a 3. So I can take that 7 and a 5. And it's +7 in total. 3 for fate, 2 for awareness, and then the 2 from Estevao.
Hell yeah. For a total of, because I'm not good at math.
14 plus 5 is 19.
19. You fucking do it. Yeah, you're good. The 3 of you are working together, moving pretty efficiently throughout the streets of Paris. There are thick, bustling herds, like flocks of sheep, pigs, and cows that are being driven to the markets. And that's providing a lot of good cover as well. As you are all passing a smaller square amongst your journey here, I think this is taking enough time that you've gone from the first hour of daylight, and now the bells are ringing into Terce, which is the 3rd hour of daylight. You are moving efficiently, but specifically, and you don't have the direct path. And then you hear, rather you don't hear. You hear silence for a moment as you guys are passing adjacent to this smaller square. And when you're moving by, you can see that everyone, merchants, peasants, mendicants alike, um, all eyes are turned on a member from the Guild of Criers who is standing atop a nearby like raised platform and reading aloud uh, the king's decree, just announcing the poor fellow soldiers of Christ and of the Temple of Solomon, known as the Knights Templar, are hereby branded heretics and traitors to the church, and is reading the king's declaration about how all suspected Templars, if they are, that comply with, the French forces. And the fact that as you hear this echoed from other nearby areas of activity as well, the king's message is now spreading through London. You are wanted criminals, enemies of the church, and the people of Paris are not to trust you. And it probably does sound more menacing in Francais. But you're able to get to as far as like the city wall unassailed. Like you guys have moved pretty efficiently. The wall of Philip Augustus is about like 25 feet tall. It has like the parapet at the top, and there are various city gates. And you've been through the Paris enough to know that it's basically the same deal on each gate, which is it is at this time of day, it would be open, and the portcullises, the active like archways, everything's open for travel to come in and out. And normally there's only like probably like a handful of guards on each gate. As you are leading the way, Elias, and you can peek out to check how clear the road is up ahead, you can see the entrance. There is a whole like contingent of city guards there, more than you've ever seen present at one gate, like a couple dozen that are all actively questioning people coming in and out. And like anyone who's coming out of the city is definitely being given more of a hard time than anyone going into the city, but they are firmly holding this gate and checking people who are coming in and out. What do you all want to do?
I will turn to Esteban and say, there is always another way than the gate.
What do you mean?
I mean, people, and he like obviously doesn't want to say like like you, like implying, like thieves and stuff, but that's absolutely what he means. So like people always find creative entrances.
Entrances, yes. Exits is another matter entirely.
Is an entrance not an exit if you use it the other way?
Meanwhile, Esteval is looking. Are they checking carts and carriages? Are they checking people's? Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. Yeah, if you're watching them for a second, you can see that they are like anyone who has like, like is guys got cloaks on and stuff like that. They're like, moving the cloaks aside, checking underneath like to see if they're hiding any like armor or like insignias of the Templar. Carts that are mostly the carts that are coming in and out, they're checked, they lift bags, they prod at things. There's not like any huge carriages that are coming in here, more on the smaller things, but still things that effectively a person could hide in, but even like smaller, like hand wagons, that would really be best for holding a child, definitely less so an adult. They're still looking at that. They're poking around and being thorough.
What of the river? Because I assume that the river has to at some point go from within the city to without.
Yeah.
And they didn't build like a freaking wall
No,
over
no, no. Yeah, there's
that.
nothing like that. No, like there's nothing that would, there's no like river checkpoints.
Exactly.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you have the river is further behind you. So,
Hmm.
but that is an option. That's absolutely something to keep in mind.
So yeah,
Torben
my
being
oh, go ahead.
not particularly subtle in any way, I think we'll defer to his friends.
Mhm.
Uh, my idea, so I have a couple of them. Both involve either like doing the pulpy, we all get into a cart and hide under like contents, or we discard our armor and gear and buy off somebody, walk through the gate and meet them on the far side to get our gear back. Either way, it's going to probably involve bribing somebody to export our arms and armor for us.
I would not trust anyone to then not simply sell us out, and then we have no weapons against them. Not anymore, I wouldn't.
Torben's hand will go to the to his sword and say, "I will buy you time."
No, no, stop. He gave this task to the three of us. Let us not abandon each other 3 hours into it. Are there any horses nearby?
You do not see any horses nearby.
Would I know of? Again, we don't have money. I don't want to steal horses. That's bad.
I will note just if on the topic of buying horses, there is no horse market in the city of Paris yet at this time. So all of the horse markets are outside the city, and kind of like on the outskirts of it, where people sell horses. There are horses in the city, just none for sale. There are probably like in addition to like horses that a couple of like guardsmen would be riding. There are probably horses that various, are owned by members of the nobility and their own, those are usually kept in like private stables. So I'd say in this present scene, there are no horses. That's kind of like the wider context for horsemanship to be aware of.
I mean, I like the cart idea.
The cart idea is pretty fun. You want to walk us through it again, Kevin? Like, which
one specifically? Because the more pulpy one is we find either a farmer or somebody, although they would be bringing their goods into the city, but there's got to be somebody with like, because those carts got to come back out. And we basically hide under a bunch of tarps and pretend to be a bunch of exports, hoping they don't check what's under the tarp. Or we try and bribe somebody to take our arms and armor out similarly as exports, and we just try and walk through and get through questioning. Because of course we're not Templars if we're not armed to the teeth.
Or we do the thing where like a cart is like on their way out and we roll under and hold on to it and get ridden out that way.
I think Esteval is sneaky enough to do that. Do we see Torben doing the like a Mission Impossible style roll under and grab onto the bottom of a cart?
Well, we must try something.
Well, here's what I'll say. Let's take a 5-minute break as you stew on this thought. And when we come back, we will see what the plan is if you choose to pursue this. All right. So let's talk about what you want to do next. What's the plan, gang?
So it sounds like we're going to try and do a slight variation on the plan.
Okay.
Esteval is going to try and pretend to be some vegetables, get out of the city that way.
Sure.
I don't know if we're going to try and either bribe somebody or just kind of do the Mission Impossible sneak in the back kind of deal.
Okay.
Well, they're not looking. But upon his egress from the city, the other two are going to wait in the city. Esteval is going to get directions to Elia's former mansion, try and find some adventuring gear, hope there is some, and come back with some rope and do a rope over the wall to try and get them out. They're going to wait until nightfall.
How very daring, how very contingent on Esteval being successful.
Yeah, right.
I like to see it, though. All right, then. Is that the plan we want to go with?
Yeah.
I'm into it.
Unless we mentioned Roman catacombs earlier, is there a role to see if we know about those and we can get out that way?
French Roman catacombs.
There's always Roman
There's always
There's
Roman
catacombs.
always
catacombs.
catacombs.
Hmm.
It aren't the French catacombs like a whole thing, but I
Yeah, but
don't
those
know if
were
they're.
those were constructed in like the 1700s, I think.
Yeah,
uh,
I don't think
but
they're
there's
here
always
now,
there's
but
always there's always old like Roman shit.
I mean the
Um,
Roman shit should be there. They were before.
Also, keep in mind, the French catacombs are on the other side of the city from where you are, where they'll eventually be. That's a fun potential. I might have to have some Roman ruins. I'm going to keep that in mind. Um,
Um,
but for now, it sounds like we're committing to this course of action with Esteval. I'm into it.
sure.
I'm into it. All right. So Esteval, you're a bit more of the sneaky sort. What is the prime opportunity you're looking for here in this gate situation?
Um, actually, I don't know if we need to do all the hoopla. I think Esteval's going to strip out of his armor, all of his Templar finery, because he has this fancy new cloak, this fancy new beggar's cloak.
Mm.
Um, yeah, why do we need to do all this hoopla?
That's fun.
I mean, that part's certainly fun, yes, but so is going to be the getting you guys out via strong and sturdy rope. Um, so yeah, I think either way, Esteval is going to take off all of his Templar identifying finery, um, and chainmail gone, weapons. Torben, you hold on to these. Uh, yeah, including the crossbow, because I got to pretend to be a beggar, or not a beggar, but at least just somebody trying to leave the city. Um, can I get close enough to the guards to like listen to like what they are asking um to people who are leaving the city, just so I can at least prepare myself for some of these answers?
I think that the city is generally pretty loud. You'll be able to hear better, but when you're actually like in the procession that's leading up to the gate, like from like it's one of those things that's like you're gonna kind of like you'll need to be already on the approach to hear it. You couldn't hear it from like the current position that you're listening from.
Yeah, sure. Then let's go with the pulpy answer. I think because of there's got to be like some kind of traffic jam or something as
Oh yeah, for
like
sure.
people are leaving. So I think there's got to be like, yeah, just a farmer's cart, and they probably got tarps to keep their stuff, from getting wet in the rains because it is, Western Europe.
And it's also October, and it's like winter's break. It's a wetter season.
Yeah.
I'm into this. I like the idea of, yeah, you're like looking around and you clock this one a peasant who has a like one of those like larger hand carts, not like a full on like little tiny like mini like wheelbarrow one, but truly just one size shy of probably needing a mule or other beast of burden to carry. Just like this wiry middle-aged guy. You just kind of see like just the knotty ropes of his arm. It is like loaded down with like just like thick like tarpaulins across the top, and you can't really see like what he's carrying in the hand cart, but it definitely is like got an oiled tarp over it, and he seems to be a bit like frustrated, a bit put upon, but like eyes on the ground. This is a man who is not wanting there to be problems, and he seems intimidated by the presence around him.
Yeah. So I think uh I think we just try and pop into the back. Uh and Monsieur Neville will kind of like perch on the back.
Okay,
Um
yeah.
so that way when there is the inevitable, because Esteval is uh probably 180, getting close to 200 pounds.
Mhm.
That's not going to be nothing for this guy to suddenly feel, in addition to whatever he's got back there.
Sure. I think sneaking into this cart is pretty risky, so I think I'm going to call for a basic test here.
Sure.
Which attribute and skill are you looking to make this check with?
I mean, quickness and stealth just feel,
That makes sense.
yeah.
I'm not. This is not going to be a contested check. I'm gonna say that this is challenging. So this is going to require difficulty 18.
Can we help?
I need an argument for how and if at all possible. Like,
My argument would be that I assume that we have like military, like, like whistles or like a bird call that I could imitate and basically like, go this direction, that direction, which would usually be for like flank formation, but I could still have a lookout and basically be like if people come too close, make that sound, which I think because they're like so like it might be hard to hear, but it's still like such a specific sound that it might
unfortunately,
still.
you do not have a +2 in stealth.
Oh shit, I don't.
I like your
I
argument
can't
though.
help. I can't help with awareness. It has to be stealth.
It would have to be the skill he's using,
Okay.
yeah. Though I think narratively that's still a thing that's in position, but
Hmm.
like in terms of the actual act, because the main thing here
Melee.
is that he is there's traffic, it's busy, it's populated, and effectively in like early daylight trying to scamper into the back of a cart with no one seeing or noticing in an active crowd. I think that's what makes this challenging depending on situational. I'll throw an example at you, because since neither of you can necessarily aid mechanically with that, the move. Let's say, for example, there was a distraction that could draw eyes away from this area by, from the crowd. I would then give Estevao advantage on his test, because he is, because that is a diversion away from from where people might spot him. So that's me, like, I'll softball pitch you an idea if you wanted to still help him somehow. But if you have similar ideas for, like, okay, this is not a mechanical aid, but would this, put the situation in his favor, I'm always happy to hear those out, because I might indeed impart a bonus to the roll. Sounds like nothing is coming
Um.
up.
Yes, for the distraction.
Oh,
There
okay.
are no horses here, but there are presumably people that
And
are.
yeah, there's people in livestock. Like, there are, like,
Yeah,
sheep and
yeah,
pigs and cows that are coming in and out of the city. Yeah.
precisely. That's what I wanted to know.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, I think what I want to try. Also, honestly, Esteban should do this himself, but I guess he's away. I guess what I want to try is, can I try to like aim something at these animals or basically like spook them so they start
Oh, that's fun. I like that. Um,
like
I
like
like
a
it a lot.
hawk maybe wouldn't do it, but like something like that, you know?
Okay, yeah, just let me paint. And I'm going to tell you right now. I don't see this necessitating any kind of role, because I think that this is just a fun idea. And I think it should. I think it's a clever plan. But let's get more fictionally specific. So, looking at this
Mhm.
scene in front of you, there are where did I put my note here? There are sheep, pigs, cows, stuff like that. If you're trying to cause a commotion, and that's, a lot of them are coming into the city because they're being driven to market, right? So pick an animal and we'll go from there, and like what you want to do to it.
Mhm. Um, I mean, cows is probably the worst ones if they
Uh,
start running around. It's gonna have people jumping out of the way. And also they would be like very useful and expensive animals, so you don't
yeah,
want to lose them.
yeah. So okay, talk to me about how you would want to cause a commotion with the cows. Because I don't think, like,
Okay.
I think I agree with you. I don't think like throwing like a stone and hitting a cow is gonna stir up a bunch of them into
No. Yeah,
drawing
I have
attention.
two ideas.
Okay.
So either I'm thinking sort of, making this up, maybe there is like someone else who has like animal feed or something. that I could
Oh, that's
like
fun.
with an arrow basically like rip that part. It spreads out. The animals are like, "Woo, party time," and they get like crazy. Or there is maybe like something if it has been raining, maybe there's like a tarp that's like sort of already like kind of buckling under the weight of like water that's been waiting up. Again, sort of I try to lift that, it splashes around, animals start panicking, people start panicking because like suddenly they're wet and gross and everything starts going bad.
Okay, you have me sold. I like your ideas. I think I think the one that makes the most sense to me, if you agree, is the like, is the spilled animal feed, and that cause these animals to just kind of like something like, especially pigs. Like pigs will just start
Yeah.
eating anything that's put in front of them. So if there's like a bunch of like if there's an issue with something like that, I'm into it. I think I will ask you: do you want to shoot something, or do you want to like slice a bag? Because I'll
I
say
mean,
one is significantly more risky than the other, firing into a
yeah.
crowd. I'm not against it. I just want to make sure I understand as we set this
But I
up.
guess if I slice it, I have the problem that I have to go near them and they will see that I'm a Templar. So
Oh, that's true. Well,
that's also
that's true.
risky.
That is risky. That is true. So,
I think it has to be the shot. If it's Elia doing it, it has to be the shot, unless Torben wants to give the slicing a try.
I mean,
I
Torben is not subtle.
no, I like
Yeah.
I like where Elias's headspace is with this. So I think okay, I want to make this happen. I'll say this. I'm not going to have you roll to shoot, and because like, I don't think failure is interesting here. I don't think it's what I will say is this: if you fire, you're competent, you're going to do as you intended, but I'm going to give you a pursuit point because you're firing a bolt out in the open, and even if it is a swift shot that cuts the bag, it's going to draw attention from someone's going to cry out, probably, maybe even a guard might see the bolt fly but not necessarily know where it came from. It's going to be a great distraction, but it's kind of putting a little bit more heat on you. So
Yeah.
okay, I
That's
will.
not how I was gonna say, can I spend a fate point to do it? But that's not
That's not
how
how that
fate
works.
points work.
That's not how that works. But I like where your head's at. But so if that's what you want to do,
Sure.
I will. All right, you are at 4 pursuit points.
Let's go.
I love it. Okay, very good. Then yeah. Hey, Jazzy, set the scene. For Estevao here about the distraction, the commotion, and then we'll get him to act.
Yeah. Would this be before you go out, you think, Kevin, or would this be as Esteban's like sort of already making his way and maybe like it's getting a bit dicey and Elias is like, oh shit, I need to save my homie.
I think causing a commotion to give Esteval a clearing makes sense
Hmm.
to me.
Okay. Yeah, I think in that case, we're sort of, you're getting set up, you're stripping the gear, that Torben is taking it. And I think Elia, we see him pray for a moment and he's like mumbling under his breath, to be forgiven his trespasses. Because he still feels like this is harming innocent people because they will make a loss out of this one way or another. And there is like this moment that he doesn't feel like this is what is right, like it is sort of this moment of I'm being forced to do something that I shouldn't be doing, but Elia, like Estevao, cannot be captured here. So he just like as he prays, he will load his crossbow. There's a breath in, and I think we can sort of see that he's almost mimicking Estevao's movements, like he is like trying to mimic how you shoot. It's like very much instant. We can see that it's not the same elegance, but he's like fairly clearly trying to imitate who to him the master is. And then he will lean out, aim, shoot. The arrow goes ripping, the tarp rips out, the feed spills out, and immediately we start to hear like, pig noises. People are starting to scream as, the owner of the feed is getting annoyed that the pigs are eating it because they shouldn't be eating it. And the pig owner is like trying to hold them back, but they're like giant animals, so that's not working. Other people are kind of like clamoring around, which is panicking the animals worse, and immediately like shoot. And I like roll back almost in the shadows. I look at Esteval and just nod.
All right. Then Esteval, this distraction gives you a bit of an edge, so you can have advantage on your check. So you'll so 3d10, and then you said plus quickness and stealth.
Yep.
All right. Let's see what happens.
So it's 6, 4, and 4.
Okay. 4 and 4 plus
7.
Okay, so that's
would not be high enough.
No.
In fact, I don't even think the 6 and 4. I needed 11 on
plus
the dice.
7. And so you rolled a
6 and 4 is 10, so it's 17.
17. I want to check something really fast in the game here because I'm curious about something. Here's what I'll say. Here's what I'll pitch to you. Because I'm very much, belong to the school of thought that like the closer you get to the number, but you miss, that's a binary pass fail is rarely interesting. That I think you do this, you're able to get in, but you're not. I think the person carrying the cart is going to notice. Like this is enough of a success that it's like, there's a distraction that like, people are you're able to slip in. But the person carrying it, we see that he he notices like the weight, and he gets this little expression on his face, and he's got a little like clammy on. It seems like he sweats and glances back over his shoulder, but he seems to notice something that something's off. But no one else in the crowd has noticed you slip into it, and he has a very torn expression as he continues to like walk towards the gate, eyes set forward, probably very nervous and stiff and rigid. You had a much like harder like landing, not that you like jumped, I should say, but like getting into it, you were not as delicate, and you definitely, it's like one of those things where it's like, oh, that you just jostled that thing pretty hard, and that was probably pretty noticeable from your hiding point. What do you do?
I think we have to. Well, I don't know that he knows stuff's up, so I think.
Well, that's what I was saying. I think it's like you landed. It's like when if you're trying to be sneaky, right? It's like when you step on the creaky floorboard, you don't know for certain that anyone heard you, but you know for certain that you made a noticeable noise. It's like that, where it's like you like jostled the cart in such a way where you're just like, oh, that was probably very noticeable, but you don't know for certain.
Then yeah, I guess we'll just do. We'll keep to the pulpy thing and say from under the tarp. Just get through the doors. Nothing strange.
The peasant, like he like looks around very like sheepishly, and like sets the cart down. He like keeps his hands kind of on the two what are they called, like the handles, I guess, and like sets it down, and like looks like ostensibly he's just resting for a moment as he looks over his shoulder and mutters for you to hear him in the car, and just goes, "Are you going to hurt me?"
Well, it depends on your next course of action, I suppose.
Are you a bandit?
Am I what?
A robber? You going to rob me?
No. I'm a godly man. Just not at this moment.
Oh, you are a Templar.
Depends on your view of Templars, I suppose.
I didn't. He's like looking around, like he's like very nervous at him talking to you, like subtly like this is going to get noticed. And he goes, I do not want any trouble.
Neither do I. So let's have you keep quiet, and there shouldn't be any.
If they find you, they're going to kill me.
Exactly. So don't let them find me.
What do you expect me to do about that?
Just pretend I'm some vegetables. Rotten ones, if that helps. No good for market.
Is this like thick, heavy lump in his throat that he swallows, and he like curses under his breath. And you can see that a couple of people behind him are like giving him some jeers for blocking the road. So he just picks the wagon back up and begins to like lumber towards the front, the gate, and the guards getting progressively closer. From Elias's and Torben perspective, by the way, like you didn't notice any of that. Like that, it was just like like just sat down on his cart for a moment. It looked very much like a man stopping for rest, then picked it up and walked.
Esteban is perfect. Of course he did it.
Yeah, Torben, what's going through your mind right now as you're watching the scene unfold?
There is a non-zero chance that this is all going to go to hell, and so he's preparing for that. Because if it comes to it, he will be the one to fight and let his friends go.
Hey, Kevin, can you roll a d10 for me, by the way?
It's a 3.
Okay, I'm going to give y'all 1 pursuit point. The wagon approaches the gate. You can hear from underneath your position in the tarp the guards speaking to this peasant, basically asking for the general business and all that. You hear the line of questioning about of asking why he is taking his goods away from the markets. And sure enough, you see him just kind of like bluster and or you hear him rather. It's talking about like, oh, it's rotten vegetables, pure slop. Not even fit for pigs. Yeah, just very much like mumbling and being very deferential. And it's a long, tense silence. Am I going to do something here? I think I need to do something here. Hold on. Where did this go? Trying to find this one quick note on a thing real fast. Where are you? Because I have an idea. I just want to see if it's a good idea. Can't find the note on what. Yeah, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to roll 2d10 for this guy just to see how he's doing. And then I'll roll for the guards. Okay. So he rolled a 10 total. The forces at the guards rolled a 4 total. And as the conversation plays out, he is like, let's be very clear. This guy fumbling the bag. He is clearly like sweating buckets. He's stammering. He's clearly like afraid and not great at lying. And it's just going on and on and on. And we see that these guards, they look very terse and they look very irritated. And as they're like walking over to like say, like to like step and begin to like poke around at the tarp. And they one of them like looks out over like all of the like how many people there are, just all of these more significant affairs going on around them. They basically just get annoyed with him and wave him on, just being like, just get out of our way. Just like, it's like, you are wasting our time. You need to get out of the way. I think that like a bit of the animal commotion as well, their attention is drawn elsewhere. And that's probably when like the word is beginning to like circulate among them that like there was like a bolt that just got fired from somewhere. So that's when they're just like, oh, they're on edge. The gate guards are a little bit more and like scanning the area, and they just forget this guy. You can exhale as the wagon begins to carry you through the gate to the other side. But for Torben and Elias, a contingent of guards are now beginning to like fan out away from the gate and are looking around because they have the reports of that bolt being fired and people spotted that. They're not like no one saw like an active like where it came from, but it's that thing where they're now like patrolling the street, like eyes looking around, peeking into like craning their head, like peeking into alcoves, looking up into alleyways. They're the alert is kind of raised a little bit, and now they're actively surveilling multiple parts of the scene. What are the two of you doing? You do see the cart pass through the wall, though, so Estevao made it to the other side.
I mean, presumably before all this, we like set up a rendezvous spot where we know, because we have
I would
probably
assume.
have we done patrols, or like we
Yes,
know at least.
you've
Yeah,
you've
yeah, we've
you've
done
done
them,
yeah you've
right?
done.
So
Mhm.
we kind of know what the weak spots are.
Oh,
Um,
interesting.
because like we've done them, you know. So I would say that Elia will, incline his head to Torben, and they'll try to go to that spot and not stay here to get caught.
Okay, so you decide to divert from the scene entirely. Estevao, a couple minutes after all this plays out and the wagon moved the other side, um, he sets the cart down and it is like muttering to himself. He can't actually hear the exact words, and he raises the edge of the tarp up a little bit and peeking inside to see you. You can see that he's very like weathered skin complexion, and he is sweating so much. This man looks basically like pale, almost like anemic from just how like frightened he is by what's happening. He's got a little quaver in his hand as he's holding the tarp and glancing at you amongst all the other discarded stuff.
And like two sets of eyes look back at him because Mr. Novell
Oh
is
yeah.
there. And I think yeah, we pop open the tarp, and just nonchalantly kind of climb out and go, merci, mon ami. Thank you, my friend. God was with you today. And let's just like clap him on the shoulders, be like, good job.
He jumps like a little bit when you clap him on the shoulder. His eyebrows like just jump up halfway across his forehead. But manages to stammer out like you're welcome. So,
I wish I had a way to recompense your efforts, but I am afraid uh vow of poverty and all that. They don't call us the poor man soldiers for nothing.
um, right, of course. Uh,
But you have the grace of God. Know that. Uh,
thank you, sir. Uh, he looks at your cat almost after a moment and stammers out, "Thank you."
oh yes, Monsieur Novella is very thankful as well.
Yes. Everything about this man says, "Okay, cool. Are we done?" Like he's just
Oh
very
yeah,
much like tensed up.
go about your way. That's all I needed. And then yeah, we'll off. Actually, Elia gave us directions, but
Mhm.
yeah, I'm not gonna ask this man for directions because I already have them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think we follow Elia's directions and make our way to the Beaumain mansion.
Okay. Going to make your way there. Torben and Elias. I think that as you are all maneuvering to the point you talked about, remind me, the intention here is it waiting till nightfall, or is he just to get over the wall?
Um, I guess if we know that these are like even during the day, not really that protected, then we don't have to wait. If we know that there will still be like there isn't really a spot where we will be unseen, then we do have to wait for the night.
I would say that in order like to basically do it unseen, yeah, it's like a nighttime thing, if only because like guard patrols are never this heavy on in your experience, but like this is the full like brunt of like you are in the lion's den. Like soldiers
Hmm.
and guard alike are all like crawling over the city hunting for escaping Templars. So it is, if you wanted to do it any sooner than night, it will be quite risky.
I guess we would. I mean, we would know about like changes of shift in normal times, but
In
I
normal
guess
times, but yeah,
yeah, we
this
don't
is an
know
abnormal situation.
yeah, so I would say wait until night if we can.
Okay, where would you want to hunker down to while away the next, 10 or so hours until dark?
Hmm. I don't have a specific destination. I mean, there's a part of me that's like, go back. If they think they've raided and killed all of us, then they're done with that place. But I don't know how that logic tracks. If not, I think it might be better for us to basically kind of stay on the move, and just try to hide somewhere near there, but unless we can fight like an empty building.
I don't know, Ben, you got any ideas here?
I think staying on the move might be a good plan.
Mhm.
And I'm trying to think of a place that absolutely would be off the radar, because an empty building would be a great place to hide. So what would be a terrible place to hide? And that's where we should go.
I mean, I mean a church? Because even for other people, a church is a sanctuary, right?
We're
Like you can't
heretics.
arrest someone in a church. But do they
Oh, that's
agree?
fun. That's fun. And I will say, I mean, yeah, there are like chapels and churches all over, especially this part of the city. So, I mean, to ask you this then, if that's where you would head to like maybe lay low amongst whoever, what are you doing about the way you look? Um, Keep in mind that you're not just enemies of the French king. You are branded, excommunicado from the church, heretics and stuff like that. So like a Templar being present on Catholic grounds is certainly no less dangerous than you just being out in the open. That is to say, if you were visibly a Templar hanging out in a church, right? So would you be removing any of your armor and like laying like stashing it away and keeping it in simple, or what are you doing with that? Because Elias here, we know, is very much like out and proud with his Templar
Yeah,
regalia.
I think
Mm-hmm.
even now he's like, no, we're not heretics. How dare you? The church knows the truth. Um, I mean, he can take off and just like wear his chainmail because it's like you wear it over it, right?
Yeah.
I
There's also
mean,
the and your shield also has the Templar insignia on it.
I
Yeah.
mean, you can inside out do it
Mm-hmm.
over the shield.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting. I'm curious, Torben, because you seem very much able and willing to just be like, all right, cool, just doing what's got to be done. Elias is being extremely stubborn about the state of things. And how is that making you feel? What's going through your head about that? Your good bud is being a
Increasing
problem.
annoyance.
Is there a point with which that annoyance begins to bubble over? Or is that just on the simmer for now?
I don't think he's there yet. If something happened, if there was a close call, that
Mm-hmm.
would be the breaking point, I think.
Okay. Well, then here's what I'm going to have happen on your end of things. Since I like the established fiction of, we'll just kind of zoom out for a moment to say that you discussed this plan, and you know what, just go hang out in a church. And we will then find the two of you in a um, one of the many Catholic sites across Paris. Probably nothing so massive and official probably something near, like relatively near where you're intending to be at. Now I'm gonna need one of you. I have a feeling it's going to be Elias. So I saw, but it's not required. We need someone to make a challenging faith plus religion test for being present on Catholic grounds amidst all of this. That means it's a difficulty 18. If you fail, you go up by 1 pursuit point, which will bring you to 6.
I can do that roll unless, Ben, you haven't rolled yet. You want to do it?
I have less faith and religion than you do in total.
Okay.
So
Yeah. And I'll help Torben's annoyance here because I think like I am sort of covering it up, but it's like very much like basically just enough to give a priest plausible deniability, but also like they absolutely know I'm still a Templar, you know? Like it's just enough so that I'm not like actually putting them in like a really difficult position if they have to follow the law. But like there is a like Elias wants to be proven correct in that the church still believes in us. So he is sort of almost testing that in this really maybe not the correct moment for it. But yeah, I'll roll that.
All right, go ahead. Before you roll, remember you have faith points, and we can review what faith points do because they can
Oh, I
affect
have to
rolls
do
here.
that before I
It
roll?
does say that you declare before, yeah, you spend them before rolling a test. You can use it to, in this case, you can add your faith attribute to the result of a single test, which I think you're already doing this. I don't see, I am fine with us saying that I could go either way because as written, it feels like if you're doing a faith test, you couldn't then add your faith attribute to a faith test already. But or maybe we're more, or maybe it's more fun if we just say that, yeah, cool, fuck it, I'm going to double it. But you can also re-roll. You have the option to like re-roll the test, and you can take whichever option, whichever result you're happiest with, whichever result is best, I should say.
Yeah, let's do that. I'll spend the points so I can re-roll
Okay.
and then pick the option that I like.
Yeah, go ahead. 2d10. Then this is faith and religion, so just +3, I think.
+3.
Oh boy, get a 15 on this dice.
What number do I need?
18 total.
18. Okay, so the first one would be a 13, so we're gonna re-roll that.
Okay. Big money, no whammies.
Oh my God, I can't do math. 9 plus 7.
16.
16 plus 3.
19. Okay. I think we find the two of you amidst just the other just people scattered about the church, and you're gonna be laying low here for a while. I want you to think about the scene for a moment, just because I would like to hear, at least if nothing else, like I would love, this feels like the perfect territory to have like a little scene between the two of you of just like, time, significant amounts of time is passing. You two have a lot of time together. Feels interesting for you to role play when we cut back to you. So I don't know, be thinking about like what a fun scene between Torben and Elias might be, what conversation might be, even if it's effectively, just pulling from our CFB experience, like what's their fun, vulnerable move here? I just feel like it would be good to have a little moment between these two. But we're going to cut back over to Estevao, who we find now maneuvering through the tangled outskirts of the city. And this is a time long before like cohesive, signposting is a thing. So it is a lot of details committed to memory, which makes sense because we know your background as being more of a street urchin. You're probably quite good at maneuvering through cities like this. And I think that it's around the time after when the church bells are ringing in sext, which is noon, the noon period. It's a bit after that when you find yourself to an old, disused townhouse. Now, most of the structures used by the common folk and merchants of Paris at this time are, wooden timbers and, built very much out of simpler materials. You got kind of like it's not quite plaster, but you know what I'm talking about. Nobles, in knights nobility are really the only people who use stone in their construction. And we are very much in a time period where like Gothic architecture was now coming into like was becoming a thing. But as we've learned from Jazzy, the Bowman family have been around for quite a while. I'm curious, Jazzy, is this household, has it changed at all? Has it undergone any renovations within the last 50 years, or does it straight up look like some more of like a fortified stone keep out of like the 11th century, basically? Like, how dated of a structure do you imagine it looks like?
Yeah, I think it was renovated and like it looks like very much like that keep, but I think that at some point I would have sort of like had like wooden decorations and like very colorful, like much more in the style that it would have been. But I think all of that is like broken down, ripped apart. So you can see like where like wooden beams would have stood with like a beautiful arch and it's like ripped down. There's like fire marks, there's scorch marks. Um, because very much like sort of the message was like you're trying to pretend that you're, Parisian of this age, but we know what you are. We know that there is old magic here. You are, heretics, witchcraft, and they like ripped it all down and just like the stone sort of bare keep remained.
Mm. I want to paint the scene about this visually here. Or rather not or vibes wise, which is to say that the Bowman keep is visibly disused. I think abandoned is the wrong word. Nobody is home, but it has that sort of like it's just adjacent to being like a boarded up, like condemned, like no one enter kind of vibe. But even like looking at this building, how is it shunned or otherwise like avoided by not just people, but seemingly the neighborhood around it?
If you were to time lapse the exterior wall, I think the people who can't avoid walking past it, every one of them spits as they do.
There is a like pretty far from it, but I think it is sort of where people have to walk past it, where the path is. It's almost like a fence, like a physical barrier of crosses and wards that people take with them and place right where the path starts to meet the land of the Beaumains, as if that's going to keep them safe from whatever lurks there.
I think just without any kind of groundskeeper, there's just weeds, tangles of weeds everywhere.
There is a like basically like parchment that's like pasted up against the front gate, as it were, curling and cracked at the edges a little bit from just weather and a bit of time. The text on it is faded, but in French is basically a notification of like this property is, that it's basically been seized and condemned by order of the king. There are also probably other, if you like plastered like notices here and there. You definitely see the word witchcraft a few times.
Well, well, well. Bowman's practicing witchcraft. Let's see what other secrets this place holds. Later, of course. But we're gonna go looking for some way of ingress.
Mhm.
Either a window that I could squeeze into, or um, yeah, I assume the doors are certainly locked, possibly even barred, but uh, ideally not having to shoulder check a door would be preferable.
Mhm.
But yeah.
Okay, I'm into it. Let's take another 5 minute break while I think about this upcoming scene. Not Elia, sorry, Esteval. I think we cut to you entering the property through whichever means you discerned. The neighborhood is not only the vicinity around it not only shunned, but it's also, I think, reasonable to say that because so much of the activity is going on inside the walls, that it's not a lot of onlookers and patrols happening in this vicinity. Plus, this is basically your childhood, so I think you can easily enter, if not in addition to breaking. How do we see you entering the property? I'll let you choose whichever method you find most interesting.
I think in the window is just easy enough. I think there's a first floor window that
It's
if
probably
the
like broken and boarded out, you know.
yeah. Yeah, and the wood from the boards is probably even rotted because neglect and time. So I think he just pops off one of the boards and we see him go right in.
Yeah, dust motes float thickly in the air here. There is the smell of dust, less so rot, and you can walk through the rooms of this household, and it is largely empty. There are a couple of tarped over humble furnishings, but it looks like this place has been like stripped bare. All money, finery, paintings, jewels, nicer furniture, it was probably removed. And I don't even think you see signs of squatters. Like, you don't see the sense that anyone's been like inhabiting this place since. The entirety of the old house stands dark and a little quiet, but not a comforting quiet. It doesn't feel like a reprieve in here. It feels more of like a heaviness. It's that sense of when you walk into a place and you just know, oh, something bad happened here. This is the site of a previous tragedy. What do you do?
Oh, well, certainly we won't be hosting any parties here anytime soon. But other than that, I think we're going to yeah. Our goal here was to find some
Mm-hmm.
rope,
Yeah.
and rope and adventuring gear of some kind, but ideally rope.
I do think that as you begin to pick around, we see you moving through these rooms. You can find some basic stuff here. I think you can easily find rope. I mean, there's whether it was something that was used to hang a chandelier or something, it's probably coiled up and bundled, discarded off to the side. Maybe there's some stuff up in the rafters. I don't know, but I do think it is completely reasonable um that you could get it. And I think there's enough stuff there that it is effectively useful to the purposes of scaling the wall. I'm going to say that you can basically like salvage some good enough climbing gear from the bits and bobs that you're able to find. We didn't talk a lot about like encumbrance and equipment stuff before. I'm going to say this counts as a significant item. And since this is our first time talking about it, um, in addition to the standard Templar gear that you started the game with, you can carry additional significant items equal to your might score. And there are significant and insignificant items. Insignificant items are things like some coins, crucifixes, signet ring, like maybe even like a book. These significant items are like larger and a little bit more that take up space on you, without a backpack. So carrying like all this like coiled up rope and stuff with which to throw it over a wall, make sure that it's weighted properly for people to use. That counts as a significant item. You do have a might of 1, so effectively you are like, because you are mostly in beggar garb. I'm a bit more like generous because mostly removed all of your gear. But as like a general rule of thumb, you can carry significant items equal to your might, and you can carry insignificant items also equal to your might, because they're two separate things. And I think as you're maybe like getting the rope, like maybe you're kind of like in one of like a discarded room on the side. I want to just take a moment to spend 2 pursuit points. As it echoes through the halls very distinctly, the sound of a door being opened, and the weight of which this door is being opened lends you to think that it would be the front door. It is, and you hear voices. My first thought to you, or first question, I should say, is, does Esteval speak German?
I'm inclined to say no.
Yeah, but I think you are a smart enough cookie to hear and like recognize languages by like the way they sound, especially just given the fact that you're in Europe, even if you don't speak it. So maybe as you hear like the sounds of like figures entering, the first thing that strikes you is you hear German, and that's unusual given that you're in France. What do you do?
Yeah. Boy. I mean, my goal here was to get rope and get back. But I am curious about who these people are and why coincidentally they wanted to break into this house the same time I did. Uh, well, is there any place I can hide?
Ha ha hide?
Yeah, hide.
Ha ha hide. Pitch me an idea for how pitch me an idea, and I want to think about it.
I'm trying to think of like what was not stripped from this house. So I'm
We
like,
did establish,
oh,
I mean, like in addition, I mean, like, it's mostly empty, but there were probably like some humbler, less fine furnishings that remain or have been like tucked into a corner, or they have a tarp draped over them. Not to mention like that there are probably like old nooks and crannies in this place as well that are
actually,
shadowed.
let's get back out the window or the
I
nearest window.
I will say that I think you're on an upper floor right now. Let's
Oh,
break this down into like to like maybe like zones and stuff, just for the sake of
mm-hmm.
reference. Of like, I think you're on an upper floor, and the window you came in on was the ground floor.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
Um, and these windows are, at least the ones that you've seen thus far. If they don't have boards over them, which they are leaded glass, and are very much set into their frame. So consider
Okay.
that.
So yeah,
And
we're
you
not getting out the
hear
window.
movement spreading throughout the house.
Okay. Then yeah, back to uh I think there's got to be a second stairway. Like there's probably the main stairway, like coming up from
Mm-hmm.
the front foyer. Um, I'm gonna go looking around for some form of egress and try and do so while avoiding notice.
All right, I'm into it. This feels like a test to me.
Yeah.
Um, What attribute and skill would you like to do this with?
Uh, I mean, either quickness or intellect are the same for me, and
Mhm.
stealth again just makes a certain kind of sense.
Mm.
Um,
I think given your background, since we know that you were um kind of like an urchin and like on the streets and the thief, you're pretty like, would you say that you honestly like feel like this is a like this kind of like stuff is what you did a lot in your youth of like sneaking around and like evading
yeah.
capture as like a child? Okay. I'm gonna give you advantage because I feel like this is very much in your wheelhouse. Um and I'm gonna say, all right, cool. I'm gonna make this contestant. I'm not gonna assign it a check. I'm gonna have this just be representative of the forces present in the scene. And luckily, it's just you, so they have a pretty hard chance of finding you. So that just get them give you a +1. Um, Go ahead and roll.
All right. 6, 2, and 3 on the dice. So 9 plus 9 plus 7 is 16.
They got a 15, so you just beat them. And I think that is reflected in the fact that like there's like a close moment, right? Where like what is like a significant set piece hiding spot that you duck into or crouch behind? What is like at the most tense moment when you're about to be discovered?
I think under a set of stairs. Like we get down to the
Mm.
bottom and we're about to like get out the one of the ground floor windows, and like we hear someone coming that's like, I can't get across the room in time. So we go running, ducking back around. There's somebody in that room as well. And it's one of the like look left, look right. And then under the stairs, there's like a little chamber, a little closet or something. And it's like, well, here we go. And yeah, we hop in there.
I see the scene folding out like playing out like this, where it's like if you were to imagine this with cinematic language, it's very much a dual focus shot where it's from your hiding spot and then these figures who are truly mere feet from your hiding spot. Like if they deigned to like poke around where you're hiding, they would find you in an instant. But you can hear them speaking more directly, and they switch speaking from German to a not quite broken, but not very skilled French. Um, and you hear like a gruff voice issuing out orders to like you've seen like now various like French soldiers, poking around the property. And this voice says, nothing here, but look a little longer. We'd hate to disappoint. See if there's anything pagan left in these old stones. And the voice then switches to grumbling something in German. You get the impression that it just from the vibe of the voice, it's almost like a curse or like just like some sort of exasperated grumbling that this person says to themselves. Do you steal a look at the person who's talking from your hiding place?
Yeah, absolutely.
They're dressed like a French knight. They're wearing the livery of the king, but they look uncomfortable, like they're tugging at it, and it's almost like they're not accustomed to wearing this. And another figure similarly dressed uh grunts, seeming like an acknowledgement of that. They look very intense, and they don't have the bearing of any French knight or soldier you've seen before, to speak nothing of the fact that they were speaking German a moment ago. But then they move past you and you can breathe a sigh of relief for the second time today. They did not discover you, and you have a bit more of an opening to make it out.
Yeah, I mean, the way is clear, then I think we see an exterior shot of Chateau Beaumont, and like the bundle of rope goes first, and then Esteval like climbs out after, scoops it up from the ground, and makes his way back to the wall.
I think you're turning out onto the street. You're still in your beggar garb when you almost directly run into a contingent of just like these soldiers who are like down the street a little bit. You didn't emerge in such a way that it's evident that, oh, you just came from the house. It truly looks like you're just coming around the corner, and you almost like bump into them, and they like glance at you, and they give you a disdainful look, and they shoo you off. The thing you notice here, Esteval, is that they spoke, the ones that just talked to you spoke perfect, unblemished French with all the natural airs of someone who's lived in the city for all their life. Um, Curiouser and curiouser, but they think you're a beggar, so they just tell you to basically fuck off.
And we happily fuck off back towards Paris proper.
Before nightfall, we see Torben and Elias, and you guys are keeping a low profile, having ducked into a church and are going to remain there throughout the day, not drawing attention to yourselves. Before we cut to your rendezvous with Esteval after nightfall, what's a scene we see of the two of you?
I think Elia, or at least like sort of a first shot that we see is him, probably under like, like the wood carvings of Jesus that can often be found in like the church, just sort of looking over at him on his knees praying as he says, and I don't know if this is historically accurate. I don't know what Bible version this is from, whatever. But he will say, yet he did not waver to disbelieve in the promise of God, but was strengthened in his faith and gave glory to God, being fully persuaded that God was able to do what he had promised. And we sort of hear like that prayer, like very much just like God works in mysterious ways, and that's fine because I trust in him, like that kind of vibe through the rest of the prayer. And it's like it's soft and like very subdued because he's not trying to, again, like get attention on himself. And he doesn't cry or anything, but you do hear his voice at certain points kind of starts to waver. There's like it cracks just ever so slightly at when he is, like because God will do what he promised and I will remain faithful. Like there's like just the slightest emotion that just kind of he can't quite keep. But as he sort of keeps going through like these scriptures that he's read like 1,000 times, his voice becomes steadier again. And when he gets through like a few lines without sort of his voice breaking, I think he will eventually stand up and go back to where Torben is, presumably not praying.
I think Torben is sitting in a pew, probably at the back corner. He has his head bowed, eyes closed, snoring softly. Just a little. You have to be close to hear it. And when he hears the footsteps heading his way, he'll lift his head and
Good morning.
is it?
Not really.
Your pride is going to get us killed.
It is not pride. Is that what you think of me?
Yes.
Hmm. And he will sort of like, sit down next to you, hands like still clasped in prayer, and he says, he's like silent for a moment. They took my home. They killed my family. And if I leave these borders of the country I was born in, I don't know if I'll ever step foot here again. We lost most of our brothers and sisters. And you would ask me on this day to abandon my God. And you would call it pride.
Would you prefer foolishness?
Perhaps, although I would still disagree.
If we are caught, if your cargo is found, everything that we have lost will be for nothing.
God will not allow it if we are faithful.
Was the Grand Master not faithful?
Did the Grand Master die? Are you certain of it? Was it not just God's will? Does he not take his angels back?
Then the Grand Master is certainly with God.
And praise be to him.
He
God
gave
will
us
take
a
us.
mission.
And God will take us when God thinks it is right. It is not yet.
You trust in you trust in God's protection when he could not protect our brothers and sisters, or would not.
It is not for me to question God's way, only to have faith in it. I mourn them, of course, but... And I think now his look like really changes. You speak as someone who has no faith.
I have faith, and so did the Grand Master, in us. Don't let your foolishness cloud our purpose. We have to get that box out of here safely.
And so we will.
Perhaps you should consider helping God along just a little bit.
God does not need my help.
God needs soldiers, apparently. Be one.
I am one.
Be a
But
better
I will
one.
not cast him away because they deem to call us these false names. Look at where we are. We are still allowed on hallowed grounds. We are still God's soldiers. I cannot abandon him. Do not ask it of me today.
Very well. Perhaps I should carry the box.
It was given to me. It was
Yes.
God's will that this mission was given. And he doesn't say to me, but he lingers like a little bit in the way that it was.
I dearly hope that you are right.
I am certain God will see us through.
It's a good place to end the scene. We cut to the church bells ringing once more over Paris, this time heralding in the later hours, matins, the nighttime. Torchlight can be seen occasionally throughout the streets along the parapets of the city wall. But true to your instincts, things seem to have thinned out and spread beyond just the immediate choke points here. And there is this spot, the agreed upon place, that is advantageous. All the two of you can do is hope that Esteval made it on his end of things. We see the two of you waiting And at some point, the rope comes over the wall.
Torben's going to press up against the wall, loop his hands together, and nod Elias. We'll need both of you to pull me up. You go first.
All right. And yeah, Elia will go first.
You get to the top of the wall, 20 feet up, and you can look on the other side. You can see Esteval.
I'll gesture. Are you like below so you can also pull on the rope, or do you need to get up to help with Torben?
Here's the fun thing. If we all get up on the wall, how are we getting down? It's a 20-foot fall. So I think Esteval is staying low.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, then I'll just sort of like gesture as in Torben next, and I'll grab hold of the rope to help Torben up.
Torben will climb.
I think I want to spend a pursuit point so that when Torben's halfway up the rope, a contingent, a patrol of guards comes around the corner and shout an alarm that that someone's climbing over the wall, and they run to the base, but you're already halfway up, so a couple of them fumble around with the rope and shout, and they begin booking it towards the nearest gate. To try and wrap around. Now, it's not close by because they're spaced out pretty sizably, but there are like watch fortifications spaced out a bit closer than there are gates. So they're just running and shouting amongst themselves. You have very little time. You get over to the other side of the wall. When Torben lands, though, you could already hear the commotion from the other side. And what do you do?
I would let go of the rope now.
Wait, where is Torben? Still on the inside of the wall?
No, he said he got to the other side.
On the wall. Okay. Yeah, and then I let go, sure.
As if they were trying to follow. Hopefully that would send them back down.
I think that there were maybe a couple who were trying to climb up after you. Yeah, so that's like you can release it when you just hear a couple like yells, nothing lethal, not any hard falls, but definitely cries of alarm as they suddenly kind of like drop back down like a good 10 feet and hit the ground. You hear like just the clatter of their basic leathers and metal caps, shouting and cursing after you in French and yelling like on the other side of the wall. And they're scrambling on that side to get around, but you have a bit of a header here, but you definitely don't want to tally.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, immediately scale the other side to get down. Then
this happened like when you got the other side. Yeah,
run, I guess.
Yeah. Fucking hit the streets.
Just book it.
Yeah, book
it. Okay. It is nighttime, and I don't think it is nearly as busy. The thing about Paris, especially in the Middle Ages, it's fucking dark, right? So you do have a lot of like cover of shadows, and there's not many eyes on you. So not many people can witness you booking it away from the site of this happening. But you do hear, I think, when you have a little bit of distance between the wall and between where you just were, the sounds of alarm. There are a couple of shouts that are audible in the distance from the wall, maybe towards where one of the city gates might be. That's further off, cutting through the night air. But you're pretty confident that you had enough of a lead, especially by dropping the rope, forcing them to have to go the long way. You're probably okay for now. So is your plan to still go to Elias's house? I will also prompt, does Esteval talk about what he experienced while he was off earlier in the day?
Yeah, I'll fill them in. German soldier dressed in French livery was leading a search team looking for pagan artifacts in your house.
Well, they'll
Well,
find none.
well, neither did I, for what it's worth. Not that I was looking, but I think in Esteval's mind, at least, if they searched there once, there's no reason for them to search for it a second time. They didn't, especially if they didn't find anything on the first. So yeah, I think the plan is still hole up in Chateau Beaumont for the night.
Yeah, and I think Elias even more so is now like, what the fuck are people doing in my house again? Like, what? No, what is happening? So he's definitely even more curious now. Like it's sort of shifted from this is just a good place to lay low to like, wait, what?
And if they're still there, we'll kill them.
God wills it.
I think someone who gets it.
I think then we can just cut to um, the lot of you making it to the house again. It shows clear signs of having been traipsed through, like rather brusquely. The gate kind of hangs open a little bit. The front door um, is not standing open, but the like lock that was mounted on it previously does like hang loose and down by the ground. Like whoever like they unlocked this place and just didn't bother to like reseal it. So clearly it looks like, the people who were here before left signs of passage, but on site looking around, even like from the outside, you do get confident that there's no one presently here. Um, and when the three of you are inside, only Esteval really would be able to spot differences because like this place is so bare bones. But Esteval, having been, in here earlier, would know, okay, so that stuff was moved. Like so there was some, so like not quite ransacking, but like searching was done, whatever they were doing in here. But there is no sign of those soldiers, French or otherwise. And everything is indeed just kind of quiet in the neighborhood. And the first bit of like actual technical privacy you've had all day.
I think Elia would have sort of almost like stuttered in his movement, like hesitated for just, like a falter in his step at like the threshold, realizing that it's the first time that he'll enter this house again since, well, it became a house and not a home anymore. And he will enter like sort of not trying to play it off, but just sort of like, nothing happened. Whatever, don't pay attention to it. And he will enter and start to look around at just how damaged it is, where the rot and the mold has started to set in. And just like this dark, like storm of emotion kind of comes over him and he keeps it in. He like kind of like remains, just stoic and quiet about it. But he's definitely like as he's looking around, sort of hit with like both that like soft nostalgia of being in a place that you used to love and then that enormous hit of grief on top of the grief of everything else today of seeing it like this as he kind of starts like going through the rooms quietly.
I think Torben will lean over to Esteval and say, how large was his family?
Don't know. I didn't ask.
This could house a village. Or two.
Do you think Elia was the black sheep of the family?
No. No. Golden child, assuredly.
hate to see the black sheep then.
Do they have those here?
I'm not sure actually.
Do you think there's anything to drink?
I highly doubt it. If there is, I probably wouldn't drink it. There's fermentation and then there's vinegar.
I think on that note, let's talk about this situation in broad. Your intention here is to squat overnight, right?
Yeah, I think so. Until
That's
we
what we
have
talked
like
about.
a
Mhm.
a plan and a way
Yeah.
to go there. Yeah.
So technically, anytime you stop for a rest, um, in either civilization or the wilderness, it's considered a period of downtime. The way that the game handles this is that when you stop for a rest in a place, and you've selected the location that you're hunkering down in for the evening or for the daytime, depending on we need to determine how safe the location is for your characters. Normally, there is a role attached to that, given that we are still in Paris, in the absolute, jaws of the beast here. This is going to be considered a dangerous location. I'm not rolling because there are differences on what makes a dangerous location. Sometimes they add pursuit points. Sometimes, something more dramatic happens. For this, I'm just saying it's dangerous, which means that you basically have to stay on your guard the entire time you're here. If a location is safe, you're allowed to do things called downtime actions but when it's not safe, when it's dangerous, maybe you are taking shifts keeping a watch to ensure that you're not there's not any like guards that are going to come poking around here. You're just kind of staying on alert. You don't really get much of room to breathe. So that's all that's happening here. That's the only, and that doesn't mean anything bad's going to happen. It just means fictionally you are just kind of on guard this entire experience overnight, even if you do sleep for a bit. So you don't really have much of leisure, but thinking about the day as it's transpired, whatever arrangements you come to in this in this house, there is still something significant that remains. I guess you could call the elephant in the room, which is the chest Elias is carrying. Now, Elias, what is your intention with this chest? Has it been kept on you all day? Are you setting it down somewhere in the house, like amongst the group? Is it you still clutching to it? Do you have any intention on knowing what's inside of it? What has been so important enough to be tasked to take it across Europe, over mountains and through forests, maybe even across seas, depending on your journey, to take it to Lisbon? Because you are the one who's been carrying the chest,
Yeah.
I'm kind of letting you decide, like, what, if anything, is happening with that tonight.
Hmm. I mean, as a player, I want to open it because of course I do. But I think like Elia, um, again, he's sort of like clinging to this because he doesn't have anything else anymore. So he's like, like it doesn't even really matter what's in it. We were given a mission, so we're gonna do it. But I think we sort of see him go through the house and he's like very gently, like very, uselessly given the state of this, but like kind of cleaning up. And I think we see him, like go to what was obviously once like a parlor where they would have had guests with like this giant, like dinner table. Again, like decorations sort of ripped off, some chairs broken, but like the wood itself, they didn't really need that, so they left it. And I think we would see him sort of like clean that up. He's dusting off two other chairs at the rest of the table, and he will call for Estevao and Torben, um, if or we see him arrive at like some point. Um, and each because kind of like he'll have sat down like it's a family dinner. I think he will place the box on like the chest on the table and sort of look at the other two. Torben first. And I think it's almost like a little bit of a peace offering, as in like whatever you say, I will defer to your opinion. And then at Esteval, he doesn't ask the question, but it's sort of there, like silently, like, do we look?
I say we look.
I agree.
And
If
then
nothing
I
else,
will
perhaps we could take what's in it from the box and use the box as a decoy.
I will click it open.
Well, it is wrapped and locked in heavy chains. So
All
how do
right.
you get past those? I mean, just to be clear, not saying like,
Mhm.
you know, they gotta make there's gotta be a rule.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like no,
I
just would
will
like to know like
Yeah,
just yeah, how
I
you get out.
will I will sort of like
I'm just saying.
do like the pretty gesture and I will give it to Esteval. He can pick a lock, can't you?
uh, do I have the tools here to pick a lock with? Um,
Feel free to take what you like. He's sort of gesturing at all like the smashed bits of woods and like metal pieces that are just like left and broken on the floor.
you seem to think that thievery is magic, but I'll see if I can figure something out. And if not, we can always have Torben smash it. Um, and yeah,
Perhaps
well,
I just have faith in your abilities.
sure. And yeah, we'll look around for. I don't know how lockpicking would work back then. Probably just some pieces of metal that we can fashion together for some kind of lockpick and MacGyver a situation.
Mm. You do have a craft skill of +2, so you are probably pretty crafty at just getting something together. So I'll say that yeah, you can most likely fashion something rudimentary with which to like click off the locks. Maybe Torben feels a little pang of sadness that he didn't get to smash the lock open, but yeah, you can pick it. It comes off with a click and the chains slacken and can be removed.
Who's going to do the honor?
Elia, you were entrusted with it.
Let's find out what the French are willing to kill for.
Hmm. More than you think. And I will click it open.
You lift the lid, and in the scarce
Oh.
light that is visible coming through the boarded windows, it shines on a simple cloth interior wherein the only thing lying in this chest is just a simple, worn, and very battered clay cup.
Oh, good. A cup.
And I think we'll end the session there today. Let's go to Stars and Wishes, everyone.
Is it? Is it?
Yeah, it is. It definitely is.
Yay.
Is it what? I don't understand the question.
Just a cup. Yeah. Well, maybe he was really into like collecting drinkware, which I do understand. Yeah, stars.
And that comment I made the other week about just casually watching Indiana Jones and Last Crusade has nothing to do with this game.
Oh, at all, not at all. Uh, yeah, stars. I I love that even though we've like established Torben as everybody's bestie, we can already see him and Elia sort of having this moment. But I also love how they're not like you know like fully enemies. Really do feel like friends who are just in a very stressful situation and not having the same ideas about how to deal with it, which I thought was a very fun uh like a very fun thing to role play and to sort of see how that works. And I thought that Torben made, like a bunch of really good points that were really fun to play with. I also love just your commitment to always being like, yeah, I'll go fight them. And they're like, no, Torben, no, you can't. You can't fight everyone in Paris. I'm very sorry for you. Um, yeah, for Kevin, I mean, I love Monsieur Nivelle. That's incredible. Absolutely the greatest thing in the world. I love the whole card thing. It was just like so, I don't know, it was kind of funny to me to just be like, I'm afraid they're gonna hurt me. Like, so yeah, so make sure they don't find me. Like, I don't understand your problem. Just like this super casual conversation with this man fearing for his damn life. Which is also a start to Alex. I love that NPC. That poor dude was going through it. He was just having a day. Um, I also start for Alex. I really appreciate like sort of the negotiation about like what can we do to distract, and I thought that we landed on something like really like pulpy and fun. That still like was still tense because it got us like more pursuit point and all of that, which I thought was really cool. Um, for wishes. Um, I mean, I'll say it out loud. I would like to see vampires. I like that we're transporting just a cup. So I'm very curious to see what that's all about. I'd love to, like actionable. I think because the game is like you only level up if you roll a lot.
No, that's not true. So the only advancement
Hmm.
points come in rolling away. You still get basically a type of advance every 4 sessions. You
Okay.
get I think it's called a gift, which is like new abilities you get every four
Right.
sessions.
And
Um,
then on top of that, if you would have gotten the advancement points,
yeah, advancement points can
you
be
can do
used like to
something.
further improve things and get things, and but you can effectively you'll still like bonuses and stuff you can take every 4 levels. Um, Getting like criticals is like definitely more evident in like rules and stuff. And sorry, I forgot to mention by the way, we had two of you aiding a role earlier that happened. The aiding Templar always takes an advance point whenever you do aids.
Oh,
I forgot to prompt that because I believe
okay.
that's correct. The basic test. Let me double check that real fast. But I believe if I look at aid, um,
I think it's if they roll a
oh, is
critical,
it only if they
everyone
roll
who
a critical? Oh,
aids.
my bad.
That's in the little snippet that you gave us. Uh, if the acting Templar character,
Oh,
the one making the test,
I
rolls a
might be
critical.
conflating a different game. My bad. Um, it's only if you roll a critical, then everyone gets an advance.
Mhm.
Okay, my bad. So
Okay.
I was thinking of a different game where if you aid, then you get an XP, but ignore me. So never mind. Um, but yeah, so obviously this is a game that is like, outside of combat, we only really roll where there's risk or a challenge or it's something a
Hmm.
failure is interesting. There will be situations where that might be more prominent, but like largely, I think you'll generate, more and more advanced points in combat scenarios, which will be evident because especially as I'm racking up the pursuits and all that, and
Hmm.
there are other things. But yeah, like I'll tell you right off of this, it's every 4 sessions, I I believe it's called gifts. I could be wrong. I think it's gifts, and you get them every 4 sessions. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll talk more about that next time.
Yeah. No, it's just, I think it's just because I'm like used to games where like you get like a lot more XP a lot more quick. And I
Mm.
was like, this feels like it's gonna take us so long because nobody got any advance point this session, like at all. But yeah, I mean that makes sense then. Yeah, I'd love to know what the Germans are doing in the Beaumass house. And I guess I'd love to sort of start next session up there with maybe a bit more exploration because Elias is convinced that they won't find pagan stuff or witchcrafty or like weird
Mm-hmm.
dark magic there. Me as a player, I'm absolutely convinced that we could find that there and that there is something going on here that Elia did not know. So yeah, a little bit more of that. And of course, I would love a scene with Esteban because we haven't really bomb. Like we haven't really done a lot of that. And I would also love to see what Esteva was thinking about Elias sort of like clinging on to this, no, I'm still a Templar, don't take it from me. And how that will affect his look on them.
I'll go. So as I think was clear, I really enjoyed Elias's stubborn faith. That conversation was great, and I'm looking forward to just seeing that get pushed to the absolute breaking point. And also the irony of talking about all the things he lost to the man leagues away from his home, which was forcibly converted to Catholicism, which was probably not a gentle procedure. But yeah, that was fun. As you said, just very white guy about it was great. Kevin, the details that you add with not just the way Estevao does things, but the cat perched on the back of the cart, and never forgetting that it wasn't just Estevao. It was thank you for taking us through, because it was also the cat. That was great. And big star for I'm a godly man, just not at this moment. Um, Loved the way you handled that. Alex, the just using a pursuit point right out of the gate and just making things tense right from the beginning. I felt the tension carried through really well. And yeah, the German soldiers, what's going on there? Want to know what that's about? Are they vampires? And that's it.
I'll go ahead and go next. Yeah, a lot of fun, high pressure stuff. I thought we were going to hit 6 pursuit points in session 2, which would be nuts. Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what happens. I mean, we were kind of vaguely told what happens when we get there, but it would have been very interesting to see. Always fun with these systems where like everything comes down to one dice roll. And yeah, it was really fun to have that thrilling moment. Um, the whole scene in the Beaumain house was again just kind of like following through. Was really fun. Um, really thrilling. I liked the scene between Torben and Elia. So stars to both of you guys. As yeah, we see the immediate tension point between these two characters, which is great. Gives them room to grow. But also Elia being, I also like call it a wish if you want. But I'm really looking forward to seeing what will push Elia to either question faith or alternatively, the pulpy thing is if we get close to that point and everything works out okay, and Elliot's just like, see, God will provide, duh. How dare you all question my magnificence, God's magnificence. Both of those are really funny. Or both of those are very, very tone reinforcing in their own different ways. So, kind of curious to see which way that it'll go. And yeah, Alex, also the ability for a GM to mechanically say, you guys are stalling, let's go ahead and turn the pressure up a little bit is very fun. And so I think you used those pursuit points admirably each time. And yeah, sure, I'll echo the wish. Vampires, let's go. Why not? Creatures of darkness, let's have at. Although I really enjoyed like the sort of spy thriller stuff that was going on, the Mission Impossible stuff, all of that, very fun. So more dark and shadowy shenanigans, I will always welcome. So I think that's what I got.
Yeah, just to be the one to do the last then. This was a lot of fun. It was really this was the thing I was thought going into it, and now very much a star of getting to see you guys approach the game as it opened up immediately from the linear introduction. Because as we talked about, with that first starting scenario, it's very much on rails to get you to the point, and then afterwards, I had no worries with letting you guys like off of the leash and seeing what would happen, because I just know you're all very talented and creative thinkers and role players. And no, it was just really cool to see how things shook out. It was fun to see a bit more of the like the system in like a more natural state, even if it is still kind of like the tip of the iceberg in terms of like all the stuff that comes into play. But I was really satisfied with the pacing and of like we kind of, this feels like the natural obstacle that's happening here. Discuss the approach, and we are like, and being like, does this warrant a roll? Yes or no? And it's nice to be able to be like, all right, cool. We're just going to roll with the narrative, and it not just feel like hand wavy. It just feels like we're only interested in the good bits. And like, if this draws out on television, we're not going to get that second season. So I was really satisfied with just how the mechanics did get triggered and how the scene shook out. I also star to the Torben and Elias scene, and like, your pride is going to get us killed. That was great. Loved all the fucking lines y'all were dropping. We had some really good ones. I loved it was perfect stinger at the end there, just being like, oh good, a cup, oh Torben. That was that I find that very very funny. And yeah, no, it was really cool getting to see these characters beyond just the scope of you're in the middle of a terrible situation react. And now we got some character flavor. I thought the crossbow and the beggar thing was a cool solution too, for like needing to like trade for a cape. Unfortunate that Torben no longer has a crossbow, but he never struck me as a ranged guy. And my wishes for next session are, I want to see Torben break some faces. I'm very curious to know what you are all going to do to begin the journey to Portugal. And also, now that Jazzy has put the idea in my head of possibly secret Bowman stuff, I'm like, well, that's a fun angle I can play around with if I wasn't already thinking about it. So yeah, man, I'm just excited to see that. So my main wish though is just getting us out of Paris, because we gotta hit the road. We gotta journey and see what takes us, and that's what I'm ready for. So I'm hoping that next session going forward, we get to really dive into the Templars' quest ahead of them. So that is what I got. Any other stars or wishes? Then that will bring this session to a close.